Okay. Hello, Maxime
Yes.
Durand. I was looking up how not to
Hello,
butcher
Edouard.
your French name. Thanks
Maxime is
for
okay.
awesome. Thanks for joining us.
No
And yeah,
worries.
I'm excited to have you here. As AKA Void Herald and the author of I think I was is it seven original fictions now that you've written?
Uh, I think a bit more. I admit I have lost count.
Yeah,
No,
you're right.
seriously. Yes, I think I am on my seventh series. Yes, I have done Vainqueuer the Dragon, The Perfect Run, Never Die Twice, Kairos, Underland,
Right.
Magik, and two other standalone books a bit earlier. So yeah, I have some bibliography now.
Mm. So you're based in France, is that correct?
Uh, n- no, I'm French, but I spend most of my time either in Tunisia or lately in Malta
Oh, okay. Yeah,
for organization purposes. So
I see.
I still consider myself a Frenchman first and foremost, but I'm something of a digital nomad lately.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, I thought you were in Malta for like a vacation. So I was looking up like is Malta a good vacation spot or like a how to
Uh,
tourist.
it is, but I'm mostly there to for business purposes
Mm,
because it is. I won't give you too many details, but it has a very good business environment, for example, for game, intellectual property, or digital stuff. So
I see.
I'm setting up shop there for future projects.
Cool, cool. Is there like uh so it Malta is like where you're able to do business with the like US platforms, for example, like Patreon and Topless, right? For your webcomic adaptation of Vainqueuer the Dragon.
For the Vainqueuer adaptation, it was adapted by Tapas, which is an American Korean company. They're
Yes.
currently fusing with another Korean company whose name I forget. But I mostly work with Patreon, Amazon, and other publishers like Aiton or Podium, the
Mm,
books. So
awesome. So I was actually reading another like brief interview you did with Actus, um,
mm,
who's
on Reddit, yes.
on Reddit, yeah. And you said you were inspired by books like George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire, which is like a
Mm.
pretty traditional, fantasy, as well as books like Warren and I think Mother of Learning was another one of. Has
Yes, I'm over. No, gone.
Oh, I
Finish
was
your
just
sentence.
wondering, has since then, has any other works kind of caught your eye, or do you even get to spend a lot of time reading since you're
Uh,
writing so
Not
full time?
unfortunately, no. I have a backlog of books that I would like to read, especially from other authors of RoyalRoad with whom I discuss with.
Hmm.
But yes, I'm currently there have been two series which have really caught my interest lately. It's fifth season by Nemkin, if I
I'm sorry, could
pronounce
you
her
repeat the name?
right.
Yeah, could you drop it in the.
Jemisin, NK Jemisin, the fifth season trilogy with the Belize Gate and the Sun Sky. It's fantasy series which is I highly recommend for future readers in this interview because it's a series that takes a lot of risk in terms of narration, which alternate between a you second person narration and first third person, which
Mhm.
is really well done, I think. And the other is Remembrance of Earth trilogy, which includes the Dark Forest, the science fiction series. Yeah, because it has some concepts which really interest me, even if in terms of writing, I don't think it's that good. The ideas in it are extremely interesting. So this have been my influence lately.
Mm. So you've been reading these books, or are they on your to read list?
They're on my Kindle, but these are the books I have managed to find the time to read last year.
Yeah.
It's not,
I
I
think
wish I could
you're
read more, but
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's it.
I think you're writing Kairos and Underland at the same time. Is that right?
Both are complete. So for now,
Right.
I'm focusing on Apocalypse Tamer, which
Hmm.
is my current series. But at the same time, I worked on the Vainqueuer webcomic, and I'm currently writing on the side the more standalone books, something that is more experimental, but not long series. Like single entry books that I intend to publish later. I think probably next year.
Okay,
But for
cool.
now, Apocalypse Tamer is my focus.
I see, I see. I think I just meant that when you were serializing and publishing Underland and Kairos at the same time, because I remember, I think when you were finishing Kairos, you said something about like, oh, like it's it's been more challenging to write multiple series at the same time, and I think
Mm.
that was one of the reasons you were like, okay, like now I'm going to go into not write multiple stories at the same time. Is that right?
I would say that the challenge is that when you write multiple stories but with deadlines,
Mm,
the problem with Kairos and Underland is that I had for Kairos I had a trilogy to finish as part of my agreement with Aiton. At the same time, I was doing Underland, so both time to keep the Patreon running, I had to keep publishing a set number of chapters and a set number of time. And because that also happened at the same time while I was working on the webcomic and I had other administrative stuff on the side. So the result is that I had like a lot of deadlines and to say that pressures at the
mm,
same time. So
I
at
see.
one point I couldn't free time for myself until I finished one.
Right.
So that was really changing, and that's why currently the only thing with deadline currently that I write is Apocalypse Tamer. When I say that I'm working on other stuff on the side, it's on my own time. It's not something where I say, okay, I have to do a chapter every 3 days. It's something I write when I want, and it's a lot more easy on my on my health and mental
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. I definitely think that the web fiction industry, the one of the biggest challenges is the deadlines, right? So you right now you're writing a chapter every 3 days.
Yeah, I write 3 chapters a week, roughly.
Oh, 3 chapters a week.
Uh,
Cool, cool.
yes.
Uh,
So I keep one day to brief
yeah.
brief now.
How many, so obviously you do this full time, but I know that you said you were working on your, others, like launching a business and whatnot. So how many hours a day do you spend writing?
That's hard to say because I don't know, like 8 to 10, if I
Eight to
count
10 hours.
yes. Because the thing is that I have how to say that a writing method where I write a draft of the
Hmm.
chapter. I send it to favored readers who tell me what they think, and then
Hmm.
afterward I rework on it based on the first the responses, like some suggestion that say, okay, that I'm a bit surprised by that, it could be expanded, etc. But basically, it's back and forth with an editor, more or less.
I see.
And based on that, afterwards, I regrade the chapter until I feel it's ready, and then I publish it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I spend a lot of time on the writing process. Not a quick producer, I'd say.
Hmm. Yeah. So if you're writing 3 chapters a week and spending 8 to 10 hours a day on
Yeah,
just Apocalypse Tamer. So back when you were writing Kairos and Underland at the same time with the deadlines.
yeah, that was. But basically, I had no social life, no weekend
Yeah,
or anything, and
right.
that was why I couldn't.
Mm,
That's why I slowed down because it caused me a lot of stress-related issues,
yeah.
like that I had some sleeplessness. I had some throat problems, because of gastric, stress-related gastric disorders coming. So
Yeah.
basically, at one point, I said, okay, I have to slow down, or I'm going to have problems
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot later.
Yeah.
Not to mention the back problem, which is a thing I think almost every writer is going to be dealing with. Forced to sit to write for all the time.
Right.
It's also some issues to deal with.
Yeah. I think I don't know how like familiar you are with like manga or the web fiction scene in the Asia.
Yeah, I know like a lot of them end up doing burnouts or having health problems because they're
Yeah.
overworked, and
Right.
that's not really surprising. Yeah, I consider myself fortunate because I think it was like the mangaka for One Piece or something had like 6 hours of sleep and 2 hours of free time a week before he was forced to slow down because of his health problems. So I'm not there. I'm not there yet, but yeah, it's really easy to become prisoner of schedules if you have a lot of deadlines working at the same time, and it's something I'm trying to avoid from now on.
Mhm. What are some things that you do to kind of take care of your health? Like, do you like enjoy running or spending time? You spend a certain amount of time outside, or I don't know.
Yeah, I try to go outside whenever possible. But otherwise, I think my best purchase of the year was an indoor bike.
Ah.
So basically, I do like I've started doing like 1 hour of cycling each day, which allows me to do some exercise while staying at home, for example, to do some work afterwards.
Right.
And yeah, I'm looking into swimming after a time once I have some other work assignment done. I think I will start doing some swimming time to evacuate.
Yeah. When I was in college, one of the I think professors said something like, it's not hard to do well, but the importance, like the people who win have this thing called Zeitfleisch or something. I think it was a German term, but it's like the ability to sit for a very long time, and which is
Uh,
what fiction authors have to do, right?
but it's getting into the flow. I think like you have
Mm,
to get patient. If you are, it's also like for example, I struggle to write when I have people at home or family, etc. Because writing demands a lot of mental focus,
right.
and it's hard to do that if you have outside, even if people mean well outside, because they want to discuss or to invite you to do stuff. It's really hard to focus on the task at hand if you're
Yeah.
in a social environment.
Yeah.
The problem of writing is that it's like a lot of artistic activities in something that you can only do in isolation.
Mm,
It's, I think that's to compare with your German analogy. It's being able to sit in a room for a few hours and just focus on the task ahead
yeah.
first being started.
Right. Yeah, I've definitely heard stories about like a director or something like kidnapping their script writer, putting them in a cabin, for like 2 months and out in the desert until they finish writing. But that's probably a little intense.
That's intense, but I keep thinking. I think it was Dostoevsky who ended up writing his books after like spending 16 years in prison and having
Yeah,
nothing but time on his hand.
right,
So
right.
it's a bit extreme, but I see where it comes from. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I think I heard some people say one of the reasons that Russia had a lot of great writers is because it was so cold and they couldn't go anywhere. So they were just stuck inside writing all these like War and Peace and whatnot.
Yeah,
You
that's it might have played a role in that, yes, perhaps.
mhm. So you've actually been writing for, well, I mean, I think you started publishing Vainqueur. Sorry if I'm again butchering the name. Vainqueur the
Yeah,
Dragon.
Vanker. Yeah,
Vainqueur.
it was 3 years and a half ago, no, around.
Yeah,
That I
something like
started
that.
writing.
Right, 3 years
That's
ago. Yeah, along with Magic Online.
Yes, which wasn't popular at all, but it was an experiment on a lot
Right.
of ways.
You actually wrote Magic Online for quite a long time. I think I was like 1.7 or 1,700 pages.
Yeah, but to say that, like, I'm someone who tries to finish his work.
Mm,
I hate leaving something incomplete, and the problem is that I had overshoot with the stories. To say it was like it's not the first time I wrote something, but it was the first novel where I had a large plan, and I think it was over ambitious in a lot of ways. And
mm,
the result is that I had a big plan I wanted to do, but it demanded time to explore everything. So even if it wasn't popular, even if I started to Steam, etc. on that front, I forced myself to continue
right.
until a point where I realized it was basically it wasn't popular. I was burning out on it because it was I felt a bit trapped
Mm,
because I couldn't because my work couldn't match the expectation I set for myself. And after a time, I think I ended up writing Vainqueuer because I needed like a breath of fresh air compared
mm,
to that story actually.
I see. So you actually started with Magic Online. Was that your first story? I thought it was the Vainqueuer the Dragon.
No, it was my first story.
Okay.
Technically, it was itself the reboot of an aborted, I would say, aborted blog post called Disacedia. It was something I was writing on the side as an experiment. So it was,
Hmm.
I rebooted it as Magic Online on side a bit more experience. But yeah, Magic was my first story, and probably the first the one that the most heavily influenced my writing style because a lot of the ideas that I was using in it ended up making their way into other stories of mine, but in a more perfected ways. Like for example, the color system was reused in the Perfect Run. Some antagonist concept are reused in Tamer, the LitRPG system as well.
Yeah.
It was something of a first draft, prototype.
Hmm. Right. So, but still, you've only been, even with the, first draft, so you'd say you've been writing for maybe 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I would say that. But I have always been writing, but
Mm,
I have only started publishing after things like Worm and the Mother of Learning caught my attention.
I see. Yeah.
That's when I realized, hey, maybe there are people who are interested in reading what I write professionally.
Right. I think I saw a Reddit discussion that was talking you paying homage to Worm
Mm.
using terms like clock blocker in the perfect run.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah.
I still think that Worm is an excellent story in itself, and it was yeah, one of those that influenced me the most, and most importantly inspired me to write as in a web novel serial.
Mhm.
Because how to say that I was at the time before I started writing on the internet, I had experience with standard publishers, but I wasn't very impressed by what I saw. It was
Mm,
tightly administrated, very regulated. You had very little direct contact with your audience in the end.
right.
I took post by post was more interesting because I could get feedback,
Yeah.
uh, feel a sense of progress, as I
Mhm.
write in the community. So yeah, Worm was definitively the story that inspired me to write, and alongside Mother of Learning.
Yeah.
So so there are references to them, yeah, in many of my works.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think one of the characters that the perfect run kind of reminded me of was Gray Boy, um, who was a villain, one of the Slaughterhouse Nine
Mm,
in The Worm, and I think he could create like time loops within the sphere. And I think I was reading one of
mm.
the bad runs, and
Yeah, exactly. That was, but it wasn't actually inspired by Grebo itself.
mhm,
The bad run was more of how to say that. I think it was inspired a lot by because a lot of people, ask me in for readers who don't understand the main character of the Perfect Run story can turn back time in a way, but because he had drunk a potion with that gave him his superpower, but the risk of taking another potion means that there is a chance of degeneracy. And a lot of viewers ask why the main character didn't take that potion, because in their mind, if he can travel back in time, maybe there is no side effect or something. And so I said, okay, but I'm going to show what happens if he takes that, and the result is that he goes insane.
Yeah. I think right. I think just the one thing that I respect about the web fiction authors in general is that, the amount of world building and balancing that especially in the North American or English speaking, English written scene, is the amount of thought that everybody puts into making sure that it's not just endless power scaling like you might see in some Japanese or Korean web fictions. Or I'm a fan of Dragon Ball Z, but Dragon Ball Z tends to
yeah, but the problem
endlessly
is that
power scale.
I think it's that how to say that after a time it just becomes meaningless. Like if you can destroy a planet with a punch, it doesn't. If you have someone that say, okay, I can destroy a star with a punch, it doesn't mean anything, because at that point the scale of power is so wide that it becomes pretty much arbitrary. And I think that a lot of Western writers understand that, and or maybe just a mentality thing, like they prefer to keep it to keep the characters grounded. I feel that a lot of Asian web novels, they focus on having super strong characters that rarely or never face real challenge. I think it may be just something cultural, or not sure, but yeah, I think that Western writers and Western readers prefer to have their characters being more grounded and struggling a bit more than Asian readers.
Yeah. Definitely. I actually got my start in this field as a translator of like Korean web fictions, and the because it's the turnover in terms of like the works that are popular, it's a lot more consumable, and I don't quite want to say disposable, because there are some really great Korean web fictions that take grounded characters, have a lot of character development, but I think because the turnover is so quick and the competition tends to be heavier because of it's a lot more very popular.
I think it's also maybe because payment method is different, because I was, for example, approached by a lot of Asian, Chinese, or Korean company, and a lot of them base contracts based on the number of words that you produce, instead of so basically, some companies, they basically offer scam contracts that basically say you get paid like 500 for doing like 100,000 words, which is completely insane. And but I feel it's just that the Asian market is dominated by platforms that enforce content production, not content quality, but just putting as much stuff as you can, as quickly as you can, and that encourage poorly plotted stuff that just continues for 1,000, 2,000 chapters. In the Europe and America, we have the benefit, for example, of Patreon, so fans can directly pay you for your work. You can send books on Amazon that keep producing royalties afterwards. So we have a lot of leeways that allows us to produce less but more.
More focused on the quality.
And instead of just producing more chapters, because to be paid a fraction of what the story earns about this.
Right. I think we were talking about killer schedules, and on the Asian platforms, they are it's just one chapter a day, and I think that leads to a lot of the quality suffering because you're not able to plan ahead a lot. You're not able to, so a lot of authors will go back and end up editing some chapters from time to time. And they also end up suffering from a lot more burnout and medical problems. And
Yeah, you already have some example even in the America and in Europe, where, for example, you have some stories which are dependent on Patreon, which unlike royalties are based on the number of chapters produced, so they keep extending a successful stories they have even past the point where they enjoy it,
right,
because they don't want to lose income, which is
yeah,
completely normal. I'm actually one of the few writers I feel that actually complete stories and then move on. Vast majority of people they stick to a story for far longer.
yeah,
Because I think because of the money pressure mostly.
yeah, yeah. I think the again, I'm not really sure how familiar you are with the manga industry, but even if you look at the manga industry now, so I don't know, One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, you have these mangas go on for, thousands of chapters. Well, maybe not, Naruto and Bleach, but if you look at the more recently successful like
Oh, wait, no, I
Demon
know.
Slayer, it was great. It was ended up like I think 200 something chapters. And that's something that I really appreciated about how the author ended it. Um, yeah, I
Yeah,
think that
no, there are always some exception. I feel it's also because well, you had high profile case of mangaka having health problem because of overwork. So I think there might be a bit more. The new one might have a bit more leeway compared to their older ones, because I think,
mhm,
like for example, even in Naruto, it was extended beyond the original plot, and the fact
right.
that, for example, the current author doesn't manage a sequel, left it to
Mhm.
someone else.
Yeah,
It's a pretty
yeah,
telltale that you wanted to stop earlier, and just having a honeymoon with his wife. That is it was
yeah.
pretty famous about that. But yeah, I feel that the problem is that I was actually inspired to stop my stories because of my experience with Naruto in particular.
Mm, wow.
Because I don't want to spoil manga readers, but I felt that the story would have ended a lot stretched on in its last third.
Mhm.
Uh, ah, Hello, the video is a bit bugging on your side. I'm not sure if it's.
Hello? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
what?
can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So your video was bugging, so I wasn't sure if
Oh,
you.
okay. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. But yeah, because I felt like the last third of Naruto was stretched on, and it
Mm,
really lost quality after
right,
a
right.
time.
Yeah.
And I compared that with Full Metal Alchemist, which was,
Mm,
I feel, very well plotted, with very well done ending, which left me a
yes.
lot more satisfied than Naruto, even
Mm,
if I was a lot more fan of Naruto at first.
mm,
And
mm.
I I developed the idea that either you stop the story on a good note, or you can stretch it like The Simpsons, but after a time it becomes just becomes a core.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
absolutely. It
messed up.
also takes a certain kind of bravery though, because like you said, I think there's no guarantee that once you finish a really successful series at the right time
That
and start another one, there's no guarantee that. But you have been
yeah, exactly.
extremely, luck. I don't want to say lucky because you obviously have put in the work and but like you have continually taken that risk to write in other genres and other
I
stuff.
taken that risk, but I paid the price on Patreon in particular. Like for
Mm,
example, currently my Patreon was cut in half compared to what I made from the
cut in
Perfection
half.
or
Oh my God.
yeah, indeed. So, but on the good side, the fact that I have a lot of books now means that my royalty on Amazon increase. So, but yeah, basically, my income on Patreon was cut in half because after I finished the Perfection, I moved on to Underland, which was less popular. And even if Tamer has helped me grow a bit more back, it's still yeah, half of what I made on Patreon compared to
Do
the
you?
older days.
Right, right. do you find that I think the web fiction industry, so I think I started reading on RoyalRoad back in 2015. I didn't even know what Patreon was back then,
Mm.
but I think it's been pretty incredible to see the development of the community of authors, and a lot of authors, now, just 2 years ago, a year ago, Patreon was their main source of income. But now I see more authors taking advantage of things like Kindle Unlimited, or like
Mm.
yourself, going into the comic route. I think a lot of authors are, either funding their own comic adaptation. Uh,
They they should. The thing is that webcomic is relatively expensive to produce, but speaking from experience, knows that I won't reveal the amount, etc. But it's also rather profitable when it's launched. So
mm,
that's for some established authors, who have a stream of income, it starts to make sense, to develop your own property on the side and then publish it, especially since it helps boost the sales of the books. So for example, when it was why I signed with Tapas as well, is that I figure that, oh, even if the Vainqueuer webcomic doesn't work much, I
mhm.
figure it's always going to cause people to buy more of my books on the side, and
Right, right.
that was the case. So even if I stopped writing the Vainqueur book like 2 years ago, the comic had a good effect on the sales afterwards.
Mm, mm,
So yeah, and I feel it makes more sense to, as I say, to diversify. Because, like for example, when my Patreon was cut in half, because I created another stories, the KU and Kindle sales, Audible, the comics, etc., helped mitigate the loss. So I could afford to take risk on
I
that
see.
front.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so awesome. And I love to see the industry is like growing in a really unique way,
Mm.
while there we see some parallels. So for example, I just keep bringing up the Asian market because that's what I'm familiar with, but the web fiction, the pipeline, the content
Mm.
pipeline is really put well in place, because it's been proven, that these web fictions can make really successful webtoon adaptations, and these
Mm.
webtoons essentially serve as excellent tested storyboards for movies or dramas on Netflix. And we've already seen a lot of
Mm.
webtoon to film, or web fiction to webtoon to web or film adaptation on Netflix. And I think
Mm.
that's in the future for the North American or English speaking market as well. So I'm really excited. Maybe one day we'll get to see some
But
film adaptations of your works.
I hope so as well. But already seeing my works adapted in a webtoon form was just something incredible. And watching scenes I had imagined in my mind illustrated on the webtoon page, it was really impressive.
Right.
But we already have example, like for example, The Martian by Andy Weir. It started as a blog post on the internet, then it was
Yeah.
adapted into a film by Ridley Scott.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
to go back, for example, to why I wasn't impressed by traditional publishing,
Hmm.
it was exactly because of that. I was part of, at one point, a startup that was working similarly to RoyalRoad, but with a more edition-minded process. The idea was to create a platform for web serials and then have them be published in books as a test subject. And I remember, like for example, one of the editors telling me, "But we are the editors. We know what the public wants."
Mm.
And I said, "But you basically have a test audience already that's already reading the stuff. So you can basically test your books online and see what
Yeah.
people are being in real time." And
Right.
that's when I realized that a lot of traditional publishing was very, to say that, close-minded.
Hmm. Yeah.
They didn't really understand the changes that the internet were bringing to the book industries, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I ended up working. deciding to block to do that post by post because or to say that I feel that the good part of the internet is that it eliminates intermediaries between
right.
the producer of content and the final consumer.
Yeah.
So what something like Amazon did, if for even if you can criticize Amazon for a lot of things, it changed. It allowed a lot of writers like me to emancipate themselves from middlemen or editors that cherry pick the content and sell only a sliver of the royalties by cutting out the middleman. And
Yeah.
that allows the stories that wouldn't have been published by traditional publishing to thrive. Things like He Who Fights with Monsters or The Primal Hunter, if they had tried to go through standard publishing with Hachette or etc., they have been refused immediately.
Oh,
But no, they can make money, have adaptation of their works.
yeah. So works like Primal Hunter and He Who Fights with Monsters, they try to go to the traditional publishing route.
No, I don't know if they have, but I think that if they had tried to go through traditional publishing, or at least through the traditional publishers that I met in Europe, they would have been refused because the editors at a very
I see.
the editors in charge of these companies had a
Yeah.
very close-minded vision of
Right.
writing.
Yeah.
So a thing like a LitRPG, they would have. They just wouldn't have believed in it. You know, so that's simple.
Yeah.
Even if there is a market, but simply because editors think that they know what the public wants, and that they serve as gatekeepers that prevent a lot of stories and concepts from getting past the doors.
Yeah.
So the good part of RoyalRoad, of Amazon, etc., is that it allows creators to directly publish their stuff without having intermediaries that will cut them out and well develop new stuff with
Yeah.
audience. I mean, like 5 years ago, LitRPG would have been seen as being very extremely niche or something else. And even if it is still today, it's widely popular on KU and it makes a lot of money for writers. No.
Right.
That's something that's a genre that could only emerge thanks to the internet.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I definitely. I don't know if you're familiar with the writing platform Wattpad. It's a very
Yes, unfortunately.
yeah, a lot of fan fiction. It started, I think, in 2006. But I think one of the reasons that it's been maybe financially successful, I think, has been the CEO's ability to embrace this. He uses the term like democratization of writing, and I think he talks about like trying to let go of control.
Yeah, but I feel Wattpad has a lot of issues in terms of because it has basically become a social network for writers, where you can only become visible if you spend your time marketing your stuff,
I see.
which is widely different from things like RoyalRoad, which I feel is currently the most optimized site to create a new Star series. Because they use analytics, development, a training system to recommend that work to various audience. And it's a lot easier for newcomers to pitch a new story without having to spend all their time doing their own marketing. If you don't understand, I'm not really a fan of that. That's
Oh no, I have no really strong feelings. I'm here to learn from all the platforms. Yeah, I think RoyalRoad has definitely been a part of my life for a very long time. Did you know that RoyalRoad? I mean, I think it started off as a platform to host the Korean web fiction translation. It's called Legendary Moonlight Sculptor.
not no, I haven't. I think I arrived when the site was already mostly a LitRPG, already become a LitRPG site. But that doesn't surprise me, considering
Yeah.
the vast community. But okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually have noticed that, Apocalypse, I really enjoyed one of the reasons I enjoyed Kairos was the quote unquote like simple esque lit RPG. Well,
Mm.
I mean, I enjoyed, all your works. Yeah. And I actually have like a fiction on RoyalRoad as well. And one of the strategies that I took was I'm going to keep the lit RPG system very simple, no levels.
Mm.
Everybody gets like a letter grade, D, F, whatever. And I've noticed for Apocalypse Tamer, you've really cranked on the gears for in terms of the lit RPG elements with the resistances, and I love the little plant bean ninja and vegetable characters, by the way. But I've noticed that the yeah, so
It's a more
it's pretty heavy on the lit RPG element. And what was the kind of was that a conscious decision, or were you influenced by
um,
anything?
it's a bit it's a mix of other things, but basically the system that I use in Tamer is an evolution of other systems that I use in Vainqueuer, etc., which I
I
have
see.
refined
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah.
Originally I envisioned Tamer as something of a satire of the system apocalypse
Mhm.
genre, because where you have an atypical character that basically doesn't the apocalypse is genre is basically a genre where you have the system that appears and change everything, and you have the main character that becomes usually an overpowered badass. And I wanted to have to criticize a bit the genre a bit by having the main character being like basically a shut-in that has
Yeah.
absolutely no interest in going
Right,
out
right.
and
Yeah.
doing anything. He literally has to be pushed into doing getting out of his house. Huh? So I feel some people who react to the apocalypse and just bunker down and wait for it to pass,
Mm.
like COVID or the war or the
Ah,
likes.
yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to explore a more complex system that altered different elements. The reason, like for example, why Kairos was a simple lit RPG was because I wanted to focus on to keep it grounded, keep it like
Mm. In the story, or I mean, I don't know.
yeah. What I meant is that I wanted to keep the Kairos lit RPG elements as more of a background things.
Hmm.
Where in Tamers, the focus was really examining what the system is, how could something so powerful appear, the implication of having something that rewrites the laws of the world so it follows the video game logic, which I
Hmm.
think would be is because it's very scary. Imagine the fact that you have a health bar and you die when it goes out. How
Mm.
does that work? Like if you get a needle, if you receive if you're picked with a needle for like
Yeah.
100 times until your
Yeah.
HP go down,
Until
does
you
that mean
die.
that you die?
Right, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Mm.
that's implications that I think Apocalypse lit RPG in general do not study, and I wanted to explore that. So yeah, basically in Kairos the system was something in the background. It was
Mm.
more of part of the setting. Where
Yeah,
in Apocalypse Tamer it is the focus of the
I
setting.
see.
So
I see. Very
so
cool. Cool. Yeah, I think that's another pro to you, finishing, not dragging. I'm not, not dragging out these stories necessarily, but also you're able to explore more themes and probably grow as a writer. I'm sure you learn, a lot of things from whether it's from audience feedback. I find audience feedback is one
mm,
of the, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, but audience feedback is one of those things that keeps you really honest and objective as a writer. Um,
mm.
I'm not really sure how, I'm sure every writer has those feedback that they would rather not hear or just are not constructive.
Uh,
But
there are, how to say that, I listen to feedback, but I don't always take it into account. I think
mm,
that's the key for to have a mental space as a writer. Because I will quote a friend, if everybody has nothing bad to say to you, you're probably already boring. That's a thing. You're always going to have someone who is not going to like what you do.
Yeah,
Simply
right.
because sometimes just because it's popular, there's people that just hate stuff because other people like it. There is a Schadenfreude impulse,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you have to put a distance between what people say and the work that you do. Like for example, if the comments that say, "Oh, the dialogues are bad," or "I don't like this," etc. You have to put some distance between their word and your self-image,
yeah.
and to analyze it rationally. Like if it is just one person that keeps complaining but keeps reading anyway, you can probably disregard it. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
Just
right.
someone being a contrarian. But if you have a lot of readers saying that they don't like this aspect or they would like to explore another part of the work, then yes, it's something that you have to keep in mind and to assess. So that's the thing. But I think over time you develop a thicker skin. Like in my first stories, Magik was not very successful, and it really hurt to receive negative feedback. But now that I'm on my seventh story, it just you get used to everything basically. Over time, I have seen so much. I've seen so many people like so much vitriol from people, trolls,
Yeah,
etc. But I know I'm just I have just this thick skin and some distance with.
yeah, yeah. I do think that is sort of the, dark side of the everything good that's happened in this industry of web fictions. There's I think especially early on there was a sense of entitlement, even though these authors, 5 years ago, they were definitely not making any money. But people felt very entitled to
Free content, but it's something I had to deal with piracy in
yes,
particular
yeah. You
because I
mentioned
had
that in your
huge
previous interview. Yeah.
yes, I had a huge problem with piracy and basically people taking my stuff and posting it on other sites, sometimes usurping my identity to not only publish my stuff but stuff of other authors at the same time. And I
Right.
had people, on this website where I said, this is, I do not agree with this stuff, etc. You can read the story, original story here, etc. And I said, yeah, but I prefer to watch it on the pirate side because the interface is better. And I wanted to say, but fuck you, because
Yeah.
say that fuck you, because when you support this pirate site, you actually make it hard for me to, for example, publish stuff afterwards on Amazon or to
Right.
get people that want to pay for the stuff that you enjoy for free. I can't
Yeah.
actually put it there. So it threatened my ability to keep making more content.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm even signing with publisher nowadays. It's not because of it's because I don't want to deal with the hassle of having to prove to Amazon that I am the person who wrote his own
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a problem with free stuff. And there was like the creator of the Michelin guide, the guide of cooking. At first it was for free, and then he ended up meeting someone who used this book to set a table straight. And he was so annoyed by what he saw that he says that man only respects what he pays for. And
Yeah.
I
Right.
feel that the fact that a lot of our stories are free means that there are a lot of people who basically do not consider what the author is experiencing in the background. Because, well, it's hard work to keep publishing stuff, and you're never happy to see some Russian or pirate taking your stuff and putting it on another site without your permission or anything. It's never easy, and it has consequences for your work afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. So is this still an ongoing problem? In the
Yes, it's an ongoing problem because the problem is that when you strike down a pirate website, not only it's hard because the problem is that they are in countries like Russia or China that often do not respect intellectual property, so you have very little means of actually taking down the story. And even
I
if
see.
they do take it down, you have another pirate site that pops up. It's like weed.
Yeah.
You upload one, you have another that grows 5 minutes afterward in another place. And at that point, it feels like, until there is a unified framework of intellectual property around the world, it's something that we continue to deal with eternally. And yeah, that's. But I know I had more. Thankfully, I had more. Because that I publish enough stuff, I'm a bit seen as okay as a verified account on Amazon, so I have less trouble than I had before. But
Awesome. Good to
at
hear.
some point, I struggled 2 months to get a book out because of the piracy problem.
Yeah. I think that's been one of the good things about, after talking about the dark side of the vitriol of online communities. I think the community that Royal Road has built is a community that respects authors and is willing
Mm.
to, support authors and be their patrons. And I think it's really been cool to kind of see this unspoken social contract almost develop between the authors and the readers.
Yeah, because uh, I think that there have been so many cases of authors having issue with piracy, etc. That I think there is more awareness of what it does to us. And yeah, I feel like, for example, you have a lot of people, they understand that we have, even if we decide afterwards to take a story to Kindle Unlimited, where it is exclusive, I think they understand that we have given them something for free to read for years, sometimes
Yep.
months, etc. So
Yeah.
I think they come to understand that sometimes you have need to put some food on the table, and that's necessary. And yeah, I was very pleased by the understanding I had for readers, because, for example, I decided to set some of my stories to KU because they didn't. Because problem is that once I finish a story, I can no longer rely on the Patreon income. As I
Right.
said, the Patreon income was cut in half after I finished a popular story.
Yeah.
So the only way to profit from my stories after they're done is to put them on Amazon and
Yeah. Right.
Kindle.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the exclusivity deal with Kindle is 3 times more important in terms of royalties compared to the non-exclusive thing. But I expected a lot of vitriol when I announced KU transfer, but in general, people were very understandable, especially once I explained myself, and it was, yeah, I was really touched by
Yeah. Yeah.
the understanding.
Yeah, that's cool. So I know we're almost approaching the hour mark, so I just wanted to quickly ask you some other just like questions that I had. And you mentioned in this in the previous interview with Actis, that you are a French speaker, and one of the things that you're really proud about, and I think is amazing, is that you found all the success writing in English. And I think one of the great things about Royal Road and the internet and the web fiction community in general is that we're all over the world. And so what kind of advice would you have for people who, maybe their English isn't their first language? What kind of advice would you have for those kinds of people who want to become writers?
You mean if they want to publish in English or if they want to publish in another language?
In English.
English. My only advice is to just write. A lot of people, they ask me, oh, I can become a good author, or they always want a magical ingredient, or systemic, a very complex, recipe to success. But the answer is the same. It just work. It's like swimming or running. You're always going to struggle at first, but you're going to get better as you do it. It has, for my case, I started learning English by reading, watching anime, subtitle anime, with the
Yeah.
Japanese with the English
Yeah.
text underneath,
Right.
and that's how I learned to do English. But the only ways to get better writer and is to read when you have time, and then to write, because the more you do that, the more you will learn, the easier it will come to you. That's it.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to share one more thing. This is a little gift that I've commissioned for you. I noticed that you have a lot of fan art
Thanks.
regarding your characters. But I will be sending this to you in a JPEG and PNG file. So thank you so much for joining
Oh,
me
thanks.
today for the interview, and good luck with
You're welcome.
the rest of your writing.
Thanks. But I hope it was help. And for future people who will be watching this, if you have if you want to write and publish, don't hesitate to do it, because sorry if I overstep a bit, but I had a lot of friends who say, "Oh, I want to write and publish a book," but a lot of them don't dare to actually publish because they are afraid of the feedback and the content. But we live in an age where you're always going to find people who like what you want,
Right.
who share the same taste as you, that will love your work, and you can't actually you have to get your book out there. You have to get to take that leap, and for a lot of people, a lot of writers nowadays, they can live from it. So do not be afraid to take the risk.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say for
Right.
writers.
Yes, sir. Well, I really appreciate again your time and your expertise and experiences. All
That's
right.
I wouldn't call me expertise on that front, but I'm happy that my feedback can shed more light on
Absolutely.
that.